Hello, it's Scott Manley here, and yes, we're talking about that SpaceX announcement. I honestly did not expect what I got from that. So yeah, if you haven't heard, a Japanese billionaire, Yusaku Maezawa, who likes to be known as MZ, basically is buying all the seats on a space flight around the moon on a SpaceX BFS. Now, obviously this rocket is still in development. They are talking about 2023 for it, and this money is presumably a big part of the down payment, the development cost, which Elon Musk during the press conference suggested would be about $5 billion. Now, that's interesting in and of itself, but I was totally blown away by the next part of the announcement. The guy runs like a fashion retailer, and I was kind of cynically expecting him to pull like a Willy Wonka and say, you know, there's going to be golden tickets in our clothes. No, he's a big fan of art. He actually puts a lot of money into supporting art programs in Japan and promoting young artists and buying lots of modern art from, obviously Jean-Michel Basquiat, Jeffrey Koons, and a whole ton of other people that I suddenly have forgotten. But yes, his plan, his bold announcement is that he wants to bring 6 to 8 artists with him on this trip around the moon, so that they can relate their experiences and have it influence their art. I mean, this is just utterly mind-blowing, and if I had a bold plan, I wish it could be that bold. And that does lead us to some interesting questions about the artist, but another thing that came up during the press conference was obviously the redesign of the BFS, and there's a few interesting facts that came out of it. First of all, yes, the 3-wing design is the way it's going. There's going to be 2 wings at the front, and they are all going to be articulated with the exception of the single tail fin. It's not really a fin, they said, it's actually just structural. But the way these are articulated is in one axis, like they flap up and down like wings on a bird. But I mean, that's how they move. They don't actually flap. And they showed an animation of how it would perform a re-entry into Earth's atmosphere and the landing. And the way it actually controls itself is a bit like a skydiver with their arms and legs out. They can pull their arms in at the front and they will pitch forward. They can push them out and they'll pitch backwards. And then they can do asymmetric pitching to control roll and yaw and spin. And it does kind of make sense. But I actually tried to build it in Kerbal Space Program last night, and there's no way the control systems in Kerbal Space Program map easily to keys at this point. I think I'm going to actually have to build a fly-by-wire system. They also showed video of the Raptor engine. He's talking now about 380 seconds of specific impulse, which would be a bit of an improvement on the existing Raptor results. So that's looking interesting. But moreover, they showed that they've actually built hull sections using that giant carbon fiber tool that is in a tent near the SpaceX factory. And that in itself is interesting, because I always thought that carbon fiber had to be cured in an oven, and I don't see any oven. I mean, I don't know how they would have moved an oven into that tent in secret in the dead of the night. So maybe they've come up with a different process that they can locally cure it. I don't know, maybe there's people out there that will tell me in the comments all about how I don't understand carbon fiber, because I'd love to know more. Always love to know more. So yes, that is the main part. There's no refuel needed for a trip around the moon. That was a big part of the BFS design. The payload has now dropped down from, initially it was 300, and then they made the smaller BFS, which would have been 150 tons. Now it's 100 tons, but again, this is obviously a moving target. I hope that it does, I hope that it doesn't go to 0 at any point, because that would be kind of useless. So one interesting point I did get an answer to was the engine redesign. So the 7 engines now are going to be standard sea-level engines, because it simplifies development time, right? It means they don't have to develop vacuum-optimized nozzles. However, the panels that everybody saw that were questioning, those are storage like boxes or whatever, and those can be removed so that when the vacuum level optimized engine comes online, they can essentially swap them out and get the higher performance for, say, traveling to Mars or whatever. Eagle-eyed individuals who were at the event also noticed that they had a booster on hand, which was going to be used for the abort test. And they curiously noted that it had a Block 4 interstage. I think they might just be wanting to not waste a Block 5 interstage. I'm not sure if that's relevant. But yeah, coming back to this whole art concept, it's coined, the name they came up with was Dear Moon. And yeah, if you have 6 to 8 artists, I mean, he said, the Yusaku pretty much said he would be contacting the artists that he admired and offering this potential. But that does get me thinking, who would I bring? And I'm going to say, I probably am not the best person to pick this, because I inevitably lean towards musicians. I think, people that would be on my list, obviously understanding they'd probably have to be kind of young because they would have to fly in space. So while Brian May, epic guitarist, astronomer, I think, he might be getting a little old to fly in space. And there's other people, Guillermo del Toro, awesome person, but might not fit in the spacesuit so well. We love you, but that's just a fact. Now, I think I'd love to see Werner Herzog, but he's pretty old as well. I mean, he's even older than Brian May. Jeffrey Koons, I think, is the youngest of the artists named in Yusaku's Wikipedia page, so he might be an option. I think Neil Gaiman is a very obvious choice. This man has been such a titan of fantasy writing, and he could absolutely tell us what the moon is like in a way that nobody else could. I would like to see Björk. Björk has definitely always pushed the limits. Certainly, sometimes her music can be very hard to listen to, but I totally would appreciate what she would do. Movie directors, I mean, obviously, I think Duncan Jones might be an interesting option because, of course, David Bowie was his father, and SpaceX is so bound up with that. And and obviously he made Moon, so he would be an obvious choice on many levels. Do hairstylists count as artists? Because then we could get a whole, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reference in there, a spaceship, with the hairstylist. No, never mind. I don't really know many architects that I would necessarily think would deserve it. Fashion, I am clueless. I'm going to say actually fashion. There's one person that I met at a space conference. Her name is Anouk Wifprecht, and she does, tech-infused clothes. Certainly not the most famous person, but I think she could do probably some really interesting stuff with a flight to the moon. Also, if you're going to be flying people to the moon, you're going to want people that are handy as well. And I think some of the former Mythbusters might fit that role of being artists and engineers. Obviously Adam Savage is a straight up one of the best choices, but also Carrie, she's a sculptor and she has actual skill. So either of those would be fantastic. Yeah, this is going to be an absolutely fascinating project to watch. Of course, SpaceX, the conference didn't even start on time. Delay X rears its ugly head once more, but at the same time, I hope that this happens more than anything. This would be a great moment for the human species, right? We've sent scientists, we've sent engineers, we've sent pilots, but why not send some artists? Presumably, when you buy every seat in a spaceship, that's like buying every seat on a plane. You still get the pilots and cabin crew flying along to help you out there. So yeah, look, obviously my tastes in art are limited by my experience, and they're definitely very westernized, very Eurocentric. I would love to know other people. You guys, you're obviously a huge cross-section of the world. I'd love to know who you think, who's of the right age, the right level of talent that could bring something amazing to this mission, this journey, this joyride. I mean, it would be a week flying up a few hours near the moon and then coming back with all the inspiration, and coming back very fast. There's one interesting comment from Elon is that they weren't sure still about how the re-entry whether it would be a single re-entry or a skip and then a second re-entry to reduce the stresses on the spacecraft. These are questions that will be handled during the development of the spacecraft, and we've got a few more years before it reaches that point. So yeah, let us know what you think. Seriously, I'm absolutely fascinated by what people think about this. I'm Scott Manley. Fly safe.